Hello there. I've been asked by the guys here at Yu-Gi-Oh! Undivided to do this tutorial on the banish mechanic. Banishing was previously known as removing from play. Of course, that was a bit complicated, so they changed it to the banish mechanic. Cards that are banished aren't in any specific area of the mat. So, for example, if I move these out of the way, like this is a pre-link format mat, but we've got no banishing at all. Some custom mats will have these, but quite often I use this as my graveyard personally. I use this as the banish zone. It's much easier to understand where your cards go. By default, cards are banished face up in the banish zone. However, there are some cards that banish a card face down. For example, if I can find it here, Eater of Millions is such an example. The effect of this card reads: it can be special summoned by banishing 5 or more cards from your hand, field, or extra deck face down, which results in them being your opponent cannot view them whatsoever. They are only for your eyes to view. Simple like that. As opposed to the face up banished, which specifically can be accessed by the player. There are a number of different card effects that have the ability to banish your opponents or your own cards. For example, this card is a trigger effect. When you take 3,000 or more battle damage from one attack, it will remove all monsters in each player's deck and graveyard from play. That's a slight extreme effect, but you get the idea. Continuous trap. Any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. That would affect pendulums also, because despite the rulings of pendulum stating they go to the extra deck instead of the graveyard, in reality they go to the graveyard then to the extra deck. And of course this prevents them from hitting the graveyard, and so they're banished. Dimensional Fissure has a similar effect, except it's only any monster as opposed to any card, so XYZ materials do not count for this. Of course you can have monsters with similar effects, such as Banish the Radiance, which is essentially the Macrocosmos effect, but in a monster. You get the idea. Of course then, there are cards that interact with the banish mechanic, such as Soul Absorption, which, if any card is banished, you gain 500 points for each. This can get out of hand very quickly if comboed with cards such as Macrocosmos or Pot of Desires, which is banish 10 cards on top of your deck face down and draw 2, which will result in 2,500 life points. It's quite exceptional. Of course then there are cards that work alongside the banish mechanic, such as Magiudizer, sorry about that, which gains attack and defense equal to the number of banished cards times 400. It's a little bit excessive, but once again, you get the idea. Of course, banished cards, they're a little bit more difficult to play around if you haven't got specific cards. Although there are cards such as this, Pot of Acquisitiveness, that targets 3 banished monsters, shuffles them deck, and draw a card. Very useful when combo cards such as this, or this if you want to keep reusing the same monster over again. Necroface will shuffle them all back into the deck. All cards from both players' sides, which is, again, more of a recycle mechanic than anything else. It does gain attack, however, which it can result in a larger monster. It's also very great. Upon a card being banished, it's removed from the field as opposed to being destroyed, which means cards such as, when this card is destroyed, do not trigger unless the card will state, destroy that card and then banish it. And if a card, when a card leaves the field, cards such as tokens, we'll say this is a token for example, when it's banished, it just leaves the game entirely and will never return. As opposed to monsters, say, if a card is temporarily banished, say banished to the end of the turn, this would be banished over in the banish zone. Then it would come back and it would return to the player who's controlled it upon the banishing, as opposed to, say, a card being mind controlled, leaving the field, it would come back to the person who controlled it, as opposed to the person who owned the card. Due to the power of the banish mechanic, there are cards such as Imperial Iron Will which will counter this. Neither player can banish cards, which results in any card that would be banished is sent to the graveyard instead, if chained. If it's not chained, any card such as Allure of Darkness, draw 2, banish 1, cannot be activated due to it not being able to fulfill its key requirements. Right, well, I hope that this has been a educational video. Apologise if it wasn't the best, but I did try. Thank you guys, and see you in the next one.